Hello, it's Sandy with Sandy Cogdill Designs, and today I have a really fun Get Well card. I've combined a few things from Trinity stamps and a few things from Fawn, and have come up with just the cutest interactive die. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can subscribe to my channel by hitting that button down below. You can follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill, or on my blog, www.sandycogdilldesigns. Let's get started. To start this card, I've cut a piece of cardstock at 4 1/4 by 11, and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4 and then fold it in half and give it a good crease with my bone folder. With the pattern paper, I am going to cut 3 pieces at 4 by 5 1/4, and they're going to be glued on the front, the inside left, and the inside right of this card. For the sentiment on this card, I am using Trinity Stamps Healing Wishes stamp set and the coordinating dies. I'm going to put this in my MISTI. I'm going to stamp it actually a couple of times to give it a good impression, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it out with that coordinating die. I love these dies that kind of bubble cut the sentiment. I just think it adds such a nice little touch, and then you're not bound by a banner or just trying to cut a piece of rectangular paper. I have stamped all my little images that I'm going to use using Trinity Stamps Indispensable stamp set and coordinating dies. I've used Copic marker on these little guys, and the colors that I've used are YR16, YR68, YR18, B0000, and BG000, R30, R20, and R21. These are really quick and easy to color, so that also helps make this a pretty simple little card. I'm going to go ahead and get those colored, and then I will cut them out with their coordinating dies. Next, I'm going to start on the front of my card. I am using Trinity Stamps Scenic Borders Slimline Series. I'm using the Cloud die from that set. I am also using Fawn's Little Picket Fence border, and then I will also use Fawn's Grassy border. I've cut 2 pieces from the Cloud die, and what I'm going to do next is just kind of touch up those edges with a little bit of Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. Once I got those done, I felt like that top piece was just a smidgen bit too big and it just needed something. So I went ahead and I used my Cloudy Stencil from Fawn and just added in a couple more stenciled clouds that just kind of added just a little bit more depth to it. I'm also going to touch up those top edges of my little picket fence with Hickory Smoked Oxide ink, and the little piece that's actually the rail to the fence. I cut out 2, but I'm going to only use 1. And then with my little sentiment, even though it's cut out on a gray cardstock and stamped, of course, I'm going to add just a little bit of that inking to the edges of that too. I think it just kind of softens that sentiment and makes it look a little bit better. Next, I cut out a piece of green cardstock using that Grassy border die, and I'm just going to go in with a little bit of Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink. I haven't cut my piece to the final size yet. I just need to make sure that I have the depth and the length that I need before I actually adhere it to my picket fence and my card. I have my grassy piece glued to my little picket fence. I've set that aside just for the time being because I don't know exactly where I want to trim off that grassy edge. So now I'm going to take my two cloud pieces and I'm going to adhere them to the top of my card. I've kind of played around with how big I want that to be based on where I think I'm going to have my picket fence, my little medicine bottle, and my sentiment. So that kind of is determining where I want to apply these cloud pieces. Either way, they are cut at 4 inches wide. I want them to just fall to the edge of the pattern paper. Now that I have my clouds glued on and I know where I want to put my sentiment, I have trimmed my little grassy piece to 4 inches wide. I'm not quite sure how tall that piece is, but it's tall enough just to accommodate my little medicine bottle and still look proportionate to the rest of the card. Now I'm going to put my little medicine bottle on my card and adhere my sentiment. I decided to add the little legs on him just because I needed the height in my little grassy area. However, on the inside, I did not include his legs or the little pill bottle's legs just because they were going to make my little pieces too tall. Anyway, I'm going to glue the little spoon in his hand because I thought that was cute. And the medicine bottle that I used is actually the one with the sad face. I think that's just appropriate because he's kind of sad that his little friend is not feeling so well. I felt like it needed, or at least the background needed a little bit more, and I wanted to put on some little raindrops. However, I did not have any shaker pieces that were raindrops, so what I wound up doing was cutting some out with a background die that I had from Fawn. I think it's called Rainy something. Sorry. And I just cut out a bunch of those out of pixie dust cardstock and just adhered them all over randomly on the clouds and in that background. A little bit later in the video, I'm going to adhere the little friend die to the top of that cloud. It just felt like kind of naked. So as I was working on my card, I kept thinking about what I could add to the top of those clouds to kind of fill in that area. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and glue my little medicine bottle onto my card. His head was kind of, well, the top of the bottle, his head, was kind of wonky because the paper underneath him was kind of giving a little bit extra height, and I didn't like that. So I did add a very thin foam dot to the top of that bottle just to give that top part a little bit more support. And then I glued him on in the center, and I think he looks just adorable. Now we're ready to start on the inside. So I have used the Swivel Surprise die from Fawns to cut out my inside pieces. I've cut the two circles using the blue cardstock, and then I used Trinity Stamps Clean Cut Circles Set A die to cut out the pattern paper. I wanted the pattern paper to match the inside of the card, but I needed a border, so that was the best way I could figure out how to achieve that. The You Are Indispensable, Pill Better Soon, and Doctor's Orders are all from the Indispensable stamp set from Trinity Stamps, so I've got those stamped and cut out. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put the Pill Better Soon or the Doctor's Orders. The Pill Better Soon, I kind of just bent that to get that stamped on that curve. But I wanted to make sure that when I adhered it to that larger piece, that it wasn't going to show when I shut my card. You'll kind of see that just in a little bit when you're putting these extra pieces onto that large circle, you do have to be kind of careful that when you shut your card that they don't extend past the card, if that makes any sense at all. All right, we're going to start building the little mechanism that makes those little circles move. So I've cut this out of 80-pound cardstock using the die. And I don't know if you can really see it on the video. There are some little embossed lines on there. And I'm going to fold backwards on all of those lines. And I'm going to give a good press with my bone folder, just to make sure that those are nice crisp creases. There's also a embossed line at the top part where the tab is and at the bottom part where the tab is, and those are going to get creased also. I'm not going to speed up this video. I'm going to let it play out so that you can kind of see how I am creating this piece. Once I get those center pieces that kind of form the X shape, I'm going to press in the sides so it kind of creates like a little point. This top piece that is folded down is going to be the one that adheres to the right side, the right inside of the card. So I'm going to put a couple pieces of 1/4 inch adhesive tape on that piece. I am not going to use glue, even though I am a huge glue girl, just because that's going to make it real permanent to begin with, and I want to make sure that I've got everything in the right place, so I'm just going to use the tape. I don't use the tape roller just because that's not quite as strong, in my opinion, as this other tape. I'm going to get that adhered, and then we're going to go ahead and get that pressed on to the inside of our card. Now I'm going to put this little mechanism on the inside of my card. I am just kind of putting it towards the center vertically, or is that horizontally? I'm putting it towards the center, and I'm going to line up that edge of the mechanism with the fold of the card. You don't want to have that extending too far to the left or your card's not going to shut. So once I get that placed, I'm going to press that down and continue on. Using the Swivel Surprise die, I've cut my ring shape here from pattern paper. I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere that down on that little piece of the mechanism that kind of looks like a hook. I've put a piece of scrap paper underneath just to make sure that I don't glue that mechanism down to the inside of my card. I have been known to do that. There's another little piece that the die cuts out that is a rectangle shape. It's got an embossed line on it, and it also has a little X in the corner. This is what you're going to adhere that larger circle on. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of liquid glue just on that triangle that's formed by the folds and line up my two little X's and adhere the little rectangle piece on top of the little X that's been formed by the mechanism. Again, I'm not going to speed up my video. I'm just going to let it play out so that you can see exactly how I am applying this little piece to the mechanism. Now we can apply that big circle to that piece that we just added to the mechanism. I'm going to use liquid glue. Again, if you're not comfortable with that and you're not super careful with glue, as a general rule, I would highly suggest using adhesive tape. That way you don't get your pieces glued together and just have one big mechanism mess on your hands. Next, I'm going to adhere that little circle to that piece that's coming up from the mechanism that looks kind of like a knife blade. I'm going to use liquid glue again, and then using that shape to help me line up the circle, I'm just lining that up on the outside following that curve. Again, be very careful if you're really using liquid glue. Now I want to add on my Pill Better Soon banner, and I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid glue on the bottom edge of it, because I need to have it extend just a little bit farther out than that pattern paper circle. If I put it in too far, you can't really see what the sentiment says. So I'm going to glue that on there. Again, being very careful not to get glue anywhere on that card behind the mechanism, or it's just not going to move for you. Now that I've applied my pattern paper to the left side of my card, I'm going to use some adhesive to put on that little tab that's going to hold my mechanism onto the left-hand side of this card. So as you can see, I'm just putting 2 strips of adhesive layer and then peeling off the tape. I am not using liquid glue here. I just don't trust that it's not going to kind of squish out. I suppose you could use the tape and liquid glue, but this time I am just using the adhesive tape. I'm going to hold that mechanism in place, and then I'm going to close my card and give a good press where that little tab would be. Now I'm just kind of playing around with my card, making sure everything is working well, and I'll give it another little press on the inside, and voila, isn't that just adorable? Okay, now I need to put my little friends in here. And as I said before, I couldn't really use the legs to the little medicine bottles just because they were going to get too high and they were going to be hidden by the mechanism. Also, I don't want to have a lot of bulk where those circles are moving. So I left my little legs off and decided I would just put the little arms on as I thought they looked best and glued them in that corner. I had also thought about putting them on the left side of my card, but I wanted to leave that open so that you could write, or the sender could write, a little note and sign it without having to work around a bunch of other pieces. I do like to cover up that little arm piece that's connected to the left-hand side of the card. I just think it gives it a nice finish. So I took some pattern paper and I cut it about 1 inch wide and maybe about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. And I did put some glue tape on that. I didn't want to use liquid glue again because I was worried about that squishing out on the sides and messing up with the movement of my mechanism. But I think that just kind of gives it a nice finish, and as my friend Carrie always says, the love is in the details. As I was working on the inside of the card, it occurred to me that I could use the Simply Sentimental Friends stamp and die set to put a little friend in my clouds on the front of the card. So what I've done is I've just used the die from that set and cut out the word friend from a dark gray cardstock, and I'll just adhere it on the clouds and then add a few more little raindrops just to kind of give it a little bit more of a finished look. I think that works just perfectly. And back to the inside of the card. The doctor's orders words didn't fit really well on that smaller circle, so I went ahead and I stamped a Band-Aid and adhered it to the circle, and I think that works just fine. And this is my completed card. I just love this card. I think it is so fun, and I can hardly wait to send it to someone. All right. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. You can subscribe by clicking that button and be notified of future videos. Follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdill or on my blog, www.sandycogdilldesigns.com. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you have been inspired and you are well. Bye-bye now.